Hey there, Arnaldo here, broadcasting on Fidelios Frequency. Welcome to my channel. So if you already haven't noticed, the topic of today's video is the Vinyl Tag 2023. The Vinyl Tag was started by Rob Walker. Rob Walker Let the Music Play is the name of his channel. I provided a link to his channel in the description below. Please check him out. And I thought it would be fun to do this Vinyl Tag because I have a relatively new channel, and it would give my viewers the opportunity to get to know me a little bit better through these 20 categories and these 20 selections. So let's get started with the first category, favorite new release of 2022. I've already posted my video of my 10 favorite albums of 2022. In case you haven't seen it, please watch it. And in case you haven't seen it, this is a spoiler alert. My favorite album of 2022 is Big Time by Angel Olsen. I go more into detail about this album in my top 10 favorite albums of 2022 video, but I will say this. It is a deeply personal album by Angel Olsen, a bit more inspired by Americana, beautifully produced by Jonathan Wilson. It sounds amazing, especially on vinyl. And Angel Olsen writes and sings from the heart, and she did touch my heart with this album, so please check it out. Angel Olsen, Big Time, my favorite new release of 2022. Moving on to the second category, last band or solo artist you saw live. I also did a video of my 5 favorite live shows of 2022. Please check that one out. So I guess spoiler alert again, because the favorite live show that I saw in 2022 was by Suede. Suede also released their new album last year, and it is also featured in my top 10. But we'll talk briefly about the show. They were returning to the United States after more than 20 years. I saw them the last time they were in New York City, and they had a double bill throughout the tour with Manic Street Preachers. In some cities, Suede was headlining, and in other cities, Manic Street Preacher was headlining. And that's what happened at the Brooklyn King's Theater show. Manic Street Preachers was headlining and Suede was opening for them. Nonetheless, Suede put on a fantastic show, full of energy, loud, Brett Anderson prancing around the stage like Spider-Man, going into the crowd a few times, singing with the crowd. The band is in top shape. It was about an hour and 10-minute show, but back-to-back songs, great repertoire, and the set list spanned from the earlier hits to their more recent songs on their new album. What can I say? If Suede happened to be in your town, please catch them live. They are a great band live. Number 3 on the list. Their first album was their best. This was kind of hard for me to select. I had a couple of different options, but I wanted to go with a group that I love. They've made only 3 albums and 1 live album. I recommend getting all 4 of these albums, but I have to say that their first album is my favorite. I think is also their best, and I'm talking about Portishead's Dummy. This came out in 1994. The reason why I think this album is their best is because it's groundbreaking. It's genre defining. It's like a blueprint for trip hop, if you want to call it that way. For those of you who are not familiar with Dummy, it is like the beginning of trip hop. It has samples that come from jazz, doo-wop, a little bit of R&B, haunting vocals by Beth Gibbons, and amazing soundscape by Adrian Utley and DJ Jeff Barrows. So their best album, in my opinion, is their first album, but please check out also their other two albums. Portishead, Dummy. Hat trick. Show the vinyl, CD, and cassette of an album. So here it is. Here's the cassette of Morrissey's Low in High School. I have the CD. And I have the album. This is actually the Japanese version of the album. Morrissey put out 6 different variants. Of course, they're all sung in English, but the titles are written and the color variants are different for about 6 territories. I'll add one final bonus to Low in High School by Morrissey. It technically is in a different format. It's still vinyl, but the entire album also came out on 45. It's a box set of 6 45s comprising the 12 songs on the album. So that was category number 4. Moving on to number 5. The album that starts and ends with the same letter. A beautiful reissue box set of this album came out this year, and it was among one of my favorite, and we're talking about Revolver by the Beatles. I'm not going to add anything else. Much has been said about the original album and the reissue, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Revolver starts with an R, ends with an R. Moving on to number 6. Born in the same year as you. So this band has not only 1, but 2 members that were born in the year that I was born. One of the members, Ed O'Brien, was born the day after I was born, 1968, and April 15th. And Tom York was also born in 1968 on October 6th. And we're talking about somewhere around here. Here we go. Radiohead. Moving on to the 7th category. The most listened to album in 2022. And this album was also featured in my top 10 favorite albums of 2022, and we're talking about Bronco by Orville Peck, also known as the Masked Cowboy. Kind of like gives you a hint that there is a country influence, not the modern day country, more like old school country on this record. I want to say 60s, 70s, reminiscent of a bit of Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, Elvis, a very grand production, very polished, beautiful orchestrations, very different from his first album, which was on Sub Pop, I believe, called Pony. Pony was a bit more indie country. Orville Peck, Bronco, my most listened to album of 2022. Moving on to the next category, I think it's number 8, and it's the artist that I listened to the most. So I want to say in the second half of 2021, the first box set of her reissue campaign came out, and the second installment came out in 2022. I bought both box sets, and I'm talking about Joni Mitchell. I already had all of her albums in CD. I had quite a few also on vinyl, but these box sets were too good to pass up on. I kept spinning the previous year's box set that included Song to a Seagull, Clouds, Blue, and Ladies of the Canyon. Blue actually celebrated in 2021. 2021, I think, celebrated the 50th anniversary. So, highly recommend both of these box sets. Mastered by Bernie Grundman. The first box set, all the covers come in Stoughton covers, Stoughton jackets, and they sound great. If you don't have any Joni Mitchell albums, this is a great opportunity. to grab these two box sets. Category number 9, Australian artist or band. Dead Can Dance. For those of you who are not familiar with Dead Can Dance, they are comprised of 2 members, Lisa Gerrard and Brendan Perry, both great vocalists, great musicians, and songwriters. They progressed from their earlier days where they were more of a goth, dark, new wave kind of band to a much more world music approach. This album in particular has some medieval and Baroque influences. This other album, this one was called Ion. This other album called Spirit Chaser, influenced by Native American music. Check them out, Dead Can Dance. Number 10, surprising purchase of 2022. Rastaman Vibration, superbly presented in their beautiful box. So we pull out from here, and here comes the album. The album cover alone is a work of art. Probably you cannot see this from the video, but this, which looks like a jute type of material, is actually very textured all around here with debossing. The debossing continues also on the inside, on the edges. The jacket alone is a work of art, but what Chad Kassem, who is the founder of Analog Productions, is known for is his care and detail for reissues, almost always sourced from analog tape. And in this specific case, in the UHUR series, they are issued on what he calls Clarity vinyl. Beautiful reproduction of the Tough Gong label, and the Clarity vinyl is this milky colored vinyl which is dead silent. But not only the vinyl is dead silent, it sounds amazing. Blows my previous copy out of the water, and it surprised me, one, that it was released through Analog Productions, and it also surprised me because it gave me the opportunity to listen to this album again and again and again and reappreciate this album and realize how good this album is. Category 11, an artist or band you are complete on. I don't know if you can really be fully complete on collecting the discography of an artist, but I think this is as complete as I can be for now. A few little grails missing from the collection of the Smiths. Starting off with the 7-inch 45s. All of the album releases on CD, CD singles, official albums, and 12-inch singles. Variants included the Super Deluxe box set signed by Johnny Marr, singles box set, and to finish off with my favorite Smiths album, The Queen is Dead. So category 12, a great run of 3 albums. Starting off 1979, Fear of Music, Talking Heads. Followed in 1980 by Remain in Light, and in 1982 by Speaking in Tongues. I want to say they're not completely different albums, but they progress. First of all, the first two of these albums are are produced by Brian Eno. Brian Eno also produced the one before Fear of Music, and this album has more of a dance feel. This is kind of a record. This is probably the danciest rock record you'll ever hear. Afterwards, they progressed into the funk became more and more prevalent in their music. Tina Weymouth, the bass player of Talking Heads, is so underrated. Her skills and her contribution to the Talking Heads sound is immeasurable. This album has a lot, it was inspired kind of like by the African polyrhythms of Fela Kuti. So and also the lyrics are slightly different from the previous releases. David Byrne actually relies a lot more on stream of consciousness. After Remain in Light, Talking Heads kind of did some side projects. We had a couple of solo albums by Brian Eno and David Byrne, and Tina Weymouth and Chris Frantz, along with Tina Weymouth's sisters, did a side project, Tom Tom Club. That all influenced the follow-up to Remain in Light, which is Speaking in Tongues, which is probably their funkiest record. So here's my trio, the great run of 3 records. Category 13, 80s soundtrack. Many tend to forget that this album was a soundtrack. It's a great album on its own. All the songs were featured in the movie that carried the same title and actually saw as the protagonist the artist on this album. And I'm talking about Prince and Purple Rain. So much has been said already about this album that I don't think there's any need to add anything else. Great album on its own, great soundtrack. Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain. Category 14, we lost them in 2022. In December, we were surprised to learn that Christine McVie, member of Fleetwood Mac, suddenly had passed away. Christine McVie contributed so many great songs, beautiful harmonies. She was an essential part of Fleetwood Mac. I was lucky enough in 2015 to see them live at Madison Square Garden, and when she sang Songbird, the whole crowd erupted in a standing ovation at the end. That's how much Christine McVie was loved. That's how much everyone was happy to have her back in Fleetwood Mac. Christine McVie, thank you so much for the amazing songs and music you've given to us. We miss you. Number 15, disappointing purchase in 2022. Now, in the summer, Kevin Rowland of Dexys Midnight Runners announced he had remixed the iconic album of Tu Raye, the one with Come On Eileen. No, Dexys Midnight Runners are not a one-hit wonder. This album is great from the beginning to the end. One of my favorite of that year, I think it was 1982, one of my favorite of the 80s. Probably their best album. I'm talking about Dexys Midnight Runners. Why this is disappointing? Not from an artistic point of view. I actually like what he did with the album. It was also subtitles as it should have sounded, because apparently he was never happy with the sound of the final mix, and he decided to remix it. Why I am disappointed? Because this is the worst piece of vinyl I have ever purchased. It is terrible. We're not talking about warps or skips or pops and crackles. There is a hiss throughout the entire album. It is deplorable that they put out this piece of garbage. I didn't even bother buying or asking for a replacement, just a refund. And Universal, the store that I purchased it from, you discover, just refunded me and let me keep this piece of garbage. I didn't even bother repurchasing another copy because I figure the entire run is botched. So if someone out there bought this and got a good copy, please let me know, because the one that I have sucks. Category 16, non-vinyl purchase of 2022. So when I was at the Astoria, Queens record fair, I stumbled across something that I had been wanting since it came out in 1992. I never bought a copy then. I finally came across one, and I did not pass up on it when I found Madonna's Sex Book. For those of you who don't know what the Sex Book is, it is a companion photographic book to her album Erotica that came out, I guess, within the same month that this was released. This book was very controversial at the time. A lot of nudity, therefore I cannot show you any pictures here on YouTube. Celebrities also featured naked in this book. Naomi Campbell, Toni Ward, the model, also featured in her Justify My Love video. Vanilla Ice, Isabella Rossellini. And it caused a lot of controversy. It came in a steel case with this spiral bounding. Photography was shot by Stephen Meisel, and it also came with a companion CD, which included a alternate version of the song Erotica that you can listen to while you're flipping through these images. And since I can't show you, I'll show you just one picture, which is G-rated, and actually one of my favorite pictures, which is this one. And I will read what Madonna, the introduction by Madonna of this book. I don't see how a guy looking at a naked girl in a magazine is degrading to women. Everyone has their sexuality. It's how you treat people in everyday life that counts, not what turns you on in your fantasy. But generally, I don't think pornography degrades women. The women who are doing it want to do it. No one is holding a gun to their head. I don't get that whole thing. I love looking at Playboy magazine because women look great naked. And that was my non-vinyl purchase of 2022, Madonna's Sex Book. Category number 17, you found a grail. Also, when I was in Astoria, Queens at that record fair, I came across another item that was on my list, and it is a first pressing of Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. I already had a CD copy and a later repress, which is actually the current repress in print, which sounds pretty good, but nothing beats the original Unknown Pleasures on factory. Yeah, there is a bit of ring wear, but what's important is the music and the record inside. It is the slightly red or maroon translucent version, and the first pressings came with two types of inner sleeves, one with the square inner sleeve and one with the rounded edges. This one came with the square ones, as you can see. This is a staple in anyone's record collection, I feel. Probably their best album. Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures was my grail. Category 18, space theme, album, sleeve, or song. I chose ELO's Out of the Blue. You can't get any more space themed than a spaceship. And I'll show you the full cover. And the inside cover, also space themed. The art director of this album cover, John Kosh, was the creative director of the Beatles' Abbey Road. John Kosh designed the initial ELO logo and the initial spaceship that was featured on the previous album called New World Record. And the theme is picked up again on this, even though it was designed by Japanese illustrator Shusei Nagoka, also famous for designing Earth, Wind & Fire covers. This docking shuttle is very reminiscent of the one in Space Odyssey 2001. This is not the name, the number or name or model of the vehicle. It is actually the catalog number of the album. And one more thing, unfortunately I could not show you because my secondhand copy did not come with it. There was a cutout of this spaceship, which was pretty cool. Check it out. Check out the listing on Discogs, and you could see images of that. So that was my selection for space-themed album or sleeve. Category 19, show some VCLT or a present. This past Christmas, I received a awesome present from a very special person, probably my favorite Christmas present of this past season. The Blondie box set, Against the Odds, 1974 through 1982 Super Deluxe Edition. One of the cool things of the box set is that the shipping box that it comes in is actually part of the artwork, and it's actually a custom box which has Blondie written on it and images of Deborah Harry, and superbly packaged. And here it is. So very briefly, the contents of the beautiful box set are the 6 studio albums, and then 4 albums of outtakes, starting with this one, the Blondie, Parallel Beats, demos, home tapes, early tracks. This one is really awesome, the 10-inch, Out in the Streets, and 2 really beautifully curated books. The first one chronicling the history of Blondie with very unique quotes from the band members, chronicling all of the albums and a little bit of the history of Blondie. The amount of detail and the work that went into creating this box set is just amazing. And a 7-inch as well, housed inside the discography book, which is aptly called Discografia. The 7-inch is in the cover of the book. And here we go into even more detail about all the facts of the different versions, different picture sleeves, picture discs, 8 tracks, cassettes, very comprehensive discography of Blondie. All of the jackets are really well produced. They're all very heavy cardstock, all glossy, and that's it. Blondie's Against the Odds box set. So here we are at the end, number 20, the final category of the vinyl tag of 2023. Show an album that was released in 1973. There are quite a few albums that celebrate the 50th anniversary this year, namely Aladdin Sane by David Bowie or Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd are just two that come to mind. But I wanted to show some love to Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings. This was released in December, I believe December 5th of 1973. One of Paul McCartney's most accomplished albums. Definitely one of, if not the most commercially successful album. It had a bunch of great songs. It was preceded in the UK by a single called Hell on Wheels, which was not included on the UK version of this album. I have the US version, which decided instead to include Hell on Wheels on this album. And the other songs, great songs on this album, are Jet and the title track, Band on the Run, which on its own is kind of like a mini suite of like 3 songs put together. I think it is one of Paul McCartney's best songs ever, not only of his solo output, but also maybe also be of his Beatles output as well. It was recorded in Lagos, Nigeria. The location was chosen because Paul McCartney wanted to record the album in an exotic location and asked EMI for a list of studios around the world, and he settled upon the one in Lagos, Nigeria, which unfortunately was not really technically up to speed, or at least of the quality that Paul McCartney was used to. Also, 2 band members quit, decided not to go to Nigeria to record the album, and he was left with Linda McCartney, Denny Lane, and Paul McCartney played drums, bass, and most of the lead guitar parts. It was not a very friendly environment, and unfortunately one night they were robbed at gunpoint. Some demos and a notebook of lyrics were stolen, but they made it out safe and sound, finished the recording of the album in London, applied the beautiful orchestrations written for Band on the Run by Tony Visconti, and I guess that's it. So I hope you enjoyed my vinyl tag of 2023. Please leave a comment. Please leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, as long as you just make a comment and give me your thoughts, point out any mistakes, and give me your suggestions, or maybe something that you think I should have picked instead. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.